issues. So thanks for your patience. So I'm Steven, Mental Affairs Coordinator here. You all heard from me, hopefully at the beginning during the welcome. This is the poster session number 3. And so I'm really excited to have all of you here. And so just as a kind of a short little explanation of how it's going to go. So these are 5-minute presentations effectively. So basically I'll let you go for about 3 minutes or so, and then I'll pop my video back on so that way you know that you have about 2 minutes left. And then we'll have a short period of time for questions, and then we'll move on to the next presenter. Okay. And so in the session tab here for chat, if you have questions as a presenter is going, feel free to add those at the end. If you'd like to ask your question live, feel free to let me know, and then we'll go from there. So up first, it looks like we have Bakhtawar. Hopefully I said that correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and add you to the screen, and you can help me correct if I mispronounced your name.
Oh, hi. Hello, my name is Bakhtawar Parvez.
Got it.
And I am a freshman at Amarillo High School in Amarillo, Texas. And today I'll be presenting my infographic over my research paper, Mask Mayhem.
Wonderful. So feel free to go ahead and share that. And so just to remind you, I'm just going to remove my video from the feed for a little bit. And then once you're at about 3 minutes in, I'll bring it back.
Okay. Oh, I have the tab open and I minimized it. It's not on Google Chrome. So do I need to open it through Chrome?
Well, if you click the little computer option in here, it'll allow you to pick whatever you'd like to present. So inside of the Hopin software where you are, there's the little computer screen. If you click that, it'll allow you to select. Perfect.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah. And you can just pick whatever it is that you would like to display there.
Okay, thank you.
So right now we're seeing the Hopin display if you want to change to your presentation.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, sorry for the hold up. Okay, so like I said, I am presenting my Polygence project over at Mask Mayhem. So before I even start, I want to mention the primary goal that I set for this.
Sorry to interrupt you, but right now we're not seeing the presentation or the poster or anything. We were seeing the window for Hopin. Sorry.
It's okay. Okay, now I got it. Okay, now can you see it?
Yeah, now we're great. Awesome. So I'm going to leave, and then you can just take it from here.
Okay, thank you so much. So hello, everyone. This is my infographic over Mask Mayhem. So the inspiration that was led behind this project was that I wanted to focus on my school district. So when I was picking out what to start, I was looking at different research papers. And according to one at Shahid et al. 2020, it listed that there are a lot of research studies that focus the mask effects on adults and the elderly rather than children. And then I realized, why couldn't I just do children? Because they're the next generation and they are the leaders of tomorrow. So then I set my plan into motion. I then created a Google Forms survey and it had 2 demographics questions, and it asked for the age and what school they went to. Then they were about 4 questions that were mostly pertained to the research paper. 3 of those questions were averaged out to the emotion score on the Likert scale from 1 to 5. And the emotion score composed of 3 questions that asked how well someone was studying with COVID, how well they thought about masks, and what they thought about them in general overall. And this was my independent variable. My dependent variable was the COVID-19 fear level. And this was also averaged out. This was not averaged out, but it was in the COVID-19 fear level from 1 to 5. So my question that I looked over was, how are these 2 correlated, even though these 2 clearly seem to be dependent variables? So as the responses came in around May 20th to May 28, 2021, I received an overwhelming amount of responses. About 3,000 of the school district from Amarillo Independent School District participated. The most that I received was through high school, and the least that I received was through middle school. So in the final, these two were correlated in some way, but they were on a scale level from weak to moderate. So the more comfortable or greatness that they have with masks, the more fear of COVID that they have. And the less fear level that they have of COVID was noticed. And this was vice versa. The less number of COVID-19 fear level that someone had, the less emotion score that they have with masks. And in the right-hand corner, I have my scientific research paper that you may scan that has all the information that you may need. And this is my presentation over my mask survey. So is there any questions that anyone may have?
That was great. So I have a question if others don't. Let me just double check, make sure I'm on the right tab. Yeah, I'm not seeing any questions. So how did you choose the students that you wanted to survey? Like, what was your process for determining that group?
Okay, so I split them all into 4 different grade ranges, through K through 2nd, 3rd through 5th, 6th through 8th, and K through 12th grade. I had to split elementary school because kindergartners certainly don't think the same way as 5th graders.
Right.
And I wanted to keep them all within the same and not all spread out. Then the data wouldn't make any sense.
Gotcha. So there's the question in the chat here of how did you get so many people to participate in the survey?
Well, what happened was I had to bring my idea to the school board. So that was a struggle and a challenge that I had with my paper. I had to get the school board to approve of my project. Then we had to wait, fix the survey with any question problems, and send it out. My middle school principal had to call me up a lot so that we could talk about it. And then it was finally received on like the last week of school. So most of the problems were waiting. That was the most challenge. It was waiting, making sure that people were accepting it.
Awesome. So there's also a question here of, did you find a difference in your study in terms of the race of the individuals?
Yes. Well, not exactly the terms of the race. It was more of a generalized view. If I did it through race, then most likely there would have been some change because some families of different ethnic groups have different backgrounds of how they view the situation. But it was over a broader spectrum rather than the whole.
Wonderful. Well, awesome. So just in the name of time here, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next speaker. It looks like, is it Dhruv? So I'll have you go ahead and if you wouldn't mind clicking leave at the top right, Bakhtawar, we'll go ahead and move on to our next speaker. Hello.
Can you hear me?
Can you try one more time?
Hello?
Yep, can hear you just fine.
Okay,
so
great.
Why don't you go ahead and share your screen and we'll go from there. And so just as a reminder, at about 3 minutes in, I will come back with my video so that way you know that.
I made a video for my presentation.
Okay.
So it should be under time.
So just so you're aware, video may have a little bit of a difficulty with audio. So if you're going to talk over it, that's fine.
All right. Can you see my screen?
No, not yet. We're not seeing you.
Oh, hold on. You click the button at the bottom right. That says
if you click the little computer screen icon, yeah. So we're
will
seeing
share
the Hopin view screen now, but if you share the video, there
All
you
right.
go. Perfect. So you may have to talk over this because there won't be audio.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. I have a script then. So
So just so you know, I'm going to go ahead and leave, and I'll let you just take it from here.
all right. Just give me a minute. All right. Hello, my name is Dhruv. Can you hear the audio or no? Okay. Hello, my name is Dhruv Dingari, and for my project, I built and designed 2 functional model aircraft. Actually, I think it would be better if I just used this. Hello, my name is Dhruv Dingari, and for my project, I built and designed 2 functional model aircraft. In the model aircraft industry, many corporations build scale models of their aircraft. This allows them to measure performance and make improvements without wasting resources on full-size aircraft during the design phase. Similar to how corporations build scale models of aircraft, I am building a model aircraft, 2 model aircraft of foam board in order to gain a better understanding of aerospace engineering principles and challenge myself. The plan was to build and fly 2 planes over the course of 3 to 4 months. My first plane I built was a single-engine tail dragger plane built out of lightweight, waterproof foam board. It was to be an electric plane powered by a lithium-ion battery, and the only control sources would be for the elevator and rudder. This would make the plane easier to control as a beginner. On the first test, I was able to take off and fly the plane under its own power. However, after a couple of turns, I lost control of the aircraft due to over-controlling, and it crashed. There is irreparable tail structure to the tail of the aircraft, as you can see over here. The tail completely broke off from the main fuselage. From this brief flight, however, I learned quite a bit of information, and next time I'll take my flight to a larger field and limit the control sources to prevent over-controlling. You can see the aircraft specifications on the left here. My second aircraft was a slightly more complicated design. Instead of a single-engine recreational airplane, it would be a dual-engine cargo plane, and it had a larger lithium-ion battery to power 2 more servos and 2 larger motors. This arrangement would allow me to implement a super handy feature of differential thrust. However, because I had 2 motors on either side of the main fuselage, I could also alter the mixing settings to allow the controller to allow for one motor to spin faster than the other when flying to turn the aircraft in a certain direction and improve the aircraft handling. That's what differential thrust is. Also, to aid in better aid in handling, I added ailerons to the wings to provide roll authority. When I test this aircraft, I was able to land and take off in a controlled fashion. You can see in these flight test videos.
Okay, ready.
As you can tell, I wasn't really too good at flying these planes. Here's another test video. And this is the last one. Now, one of the problems I had with this plane was that if you look when the aircraft was actually rotating, you'll notice that actually the plane actually the tail drags on the. You see right here, the tail drags on the ground, and that damages the tail, which is probably what's making it so unstable. So as I said before, the problems with this is that the required takeoff rotation angle is too high, and there's risk of a tail strike. Some future improvements I wanted to make were to change the angle of the wing itself, which would reduce the rotation angle, but it would also require a longer takeoff roll. Another thing I could do would be to add protection against the tail strike through airframe reinforcement. To summarize, I wanted to gain more experience in aerospace engineering and aircraft design. To facilitate this, I built and flight tested 2 electric foam board model aircraft. However, the aircraft exhibited poor flight performance due to problems with handling and tail strike risks. I plan on adding features to fix these issues in the future. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach me at this email.
So just for the sake of time, maybe you can answer some questions in the chat, but we're going to move on to the next speaker.
All right.
So if you wouldn't mind clicking leave in the top right of your screen, it'll remove the video. And we're going to go to who's up next? Medha, it looks like. So I'm going to add you to the screen now. Hello. So I'll have you go ahead and share your screen.
Are you able to see my screen and hear me?
You can see it just fine now. Awesome.
Okay. Hi, my name is Medha, and I'm a junior in high school from North Carolina. My poster is based off of my review research paper called Gene Therapies for the Treatment of Depression. So let's get into it. Depression is a common psychiatric disorder that affects over 1 in 6 people in their lifetime. You might ask why depression is such a big deal. Well, depression is not only just sadness, but it's a long-lasting mental disorder. Depression can cause regular feelings of sadness, loss of pleasure in activities, and ultimately thoughts of death. Depression is caused by a variety of factors, such as biochemistry, genetics, and environmental factors. So genetics relates to depression in many ways. Genetics accounts for 37% of the cause of depression, which is the hereditability rate. And there are many studies that have been done, such as a GWAS study recently showed that a lineage of families did have this one trait that caused depression. Right now, there are available treatments of depression, but none of them are a guaranteed cure. Antidepressants, for example, can target the serotonin neurotransmitter in the brain, and with that increases serotonin levels and happiness. But this seems like a really good option, but it does come with a lot of added risks. Antidepressants, for example, can cause high toxicity levels in the brain, and it can also not be effective for more severe cases of depression. Deep brain stimulation, on the other hand, is a non-chemical process which basically the doctors go into one's brain and put tiny electrodes implants in the brain. And this might seem very effective, but it comes with so many side effects, like headaches, strokes, and long-term speech problems. So there has to be a better solution. CRISPR and gene therapies. CRISPR is a gene editing technology for mammalian cells that have revolutionized the field due to its high efficiency. Originally, the CRISPR and Cas9 system was found in bacteria and was supposed to be a form of adaptive immunity. Think of CRISPR kind of like scissors, well, molecular scissors. It has the ability to cut up strands of DNA in the specific location of a genome. CRISPR works by using a special RNA called a guide RNA, and then the guide RNA is constructed to a Cas nuclease to the DNA sequence. Since we know that genetics do have a huge influence on depression, the usage of CRISPR can be crucial to being a potential treatment for depression. Scientists have been able to target something in the brain called a GABA receptor. In a way, it's kind of like the serotonin neurotransmitter, as it's responsible for moods and the fastness of the brain. So when a person has depression, the GABA receptor slows down all of the cognitive processes. By targeting the receptor, CRISPR can be used to fasten these processes and get the person back to where they were before. And this can be used as a supplement to antidepressants, because antidepressants don't work for severe cases. So if they were to target the GABA receptor, then those cases could be cured as well. But CRISPR, however, does come with a lot of challenges and ethical implications. As of right now, there hasn't been too much research done on CRISPR for the brain, so there is a lot of safety concerns. And as for ethical issues, people can use CRISPR for different things that are not used to cure for like a disease, such as like designing their children and just cosmetic issues as well. But over the next few years, CRISPR is getting developed, and there's more tests being done on CRISPR for the brain. And then as for the ethical issues, there are being laws in place to control the usage of CRISPR. So CRISPR for depression is very feasible in the coming years. And to learn more, here's the QR code for my research paper.
Wonderful. Awesome. Well, do we have any questions? Sometimes it's difficult to think of a question on the spot. So I had a question for you. So there's, obviously a lot of ways that we can try to help treat things like depression, right? And so what was kind of your driving, goal in looking at CRISPR?
So I was researching about depression because I'm really interested in mental health disorders and how we can cure them. And I found out that there was no exact cure that could really help depression in a way. Right. So I was trying to see what factors during my research, I was trying to see what factors could cause depression. And I noticed that genetics was one of them. So I thought if we could look at treatment for depression in that kind of angle, that it could be a possible solution within the future.
Wonderful. Awesome. Well, again, just for the sake of time, we're going to wrap it up here. If there are any other questions, please hang out in the session and you can answer those in the chat. But again, thank you very much. That was a wonderful presentation. Up next, we have Stella Raimondi, it looks like. And so I'm going to go ahead and help you move. And awesome. I'm going to go ahead and add you, Stella. Awesome. Hello. So feel free to go ahead and share your presentation. And so just as a reminder, once you get going, I'm going to close my video, and then when you see it come back, you have about 2 minutes left.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yep, can see it. Okay. Looks great.
Okay. So this is my presentation. It's called Les gens ordinaires, regular people. So I'm a senior in high school, and in the midst of the pandemic, during the summer of my junior year, I decided to create a short film about anxiety. So my film follows a college student in the midst of a pandemic as they navigate one day, 24 hours, while dealing with anxiety and living in New York City. So overall, my goal was to normalize anxiety and depict it in a way so that the viewer can learn and hopefully empathize with the student in terms of anxiety, as well as the pandemic and the infestation of even more anxiety. So in order to complete this project, I talked to different psychologists and psychiatrists to obtain the most current information regarding anxiety during the pandemic. Because of how recent everything is, it was hard for me to look at blogs or different research papers because I wanted to find the most recent and accurate depictions of what people were actually feeling right now. So I thought it was interesting to see the ways that anxiety manifested itself. And for some people, their anxiety actually decreased. People who had social anxiety, it actually helped them to be able to not fear those things and to just be sort of isolated by themselves. So in addition to this, my mentor and I created a time limitation in which the film would take place, which was 24 hours. So this kind of forced us to add as much information as possible into the span of, one day for this girl and what would be happening to her. So I plan on majoring in psychology. So I would like to continue to destigmatize mental health. And I'm really interested in the intersection between film and psychology. So yeah, that's what I plan on doing in the future. That's my presentation.
Wonderful. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about like some of the features of the film that you found to be kind of the most poignant or most telling that you think can really help destigmatize things?
So there's a lot of like little things that we added in, like physical symptoms of anxiety that are like sort of telltale signs that someone is experiencing anxiety. So it's actually my sister who the film is about. So I kind of just like follow her through her regular day, which was kind of cool. So she does things like she goes to buy curtains and then she goes to the grocery store and she rides the subway and you sort of see all the different people. And I also included sort of like newscasters so you could be placed exactly where we are in the pandemic with the Delta variant, because I think that also affects the way that we feel, with how intense or how sort of contagious the variant is that we're dealing with at the present moment. So yeah.
That's awesome. And so in terms of the like how you kind of portray that, I mean, obviously we're not going to like watch the whole video right now, but I was just kind of curious, with the impact of, the pandemic itself, like all the isolation, how does your video kind of like portray that and like making things worse or, adding new avenues for expression, for instance?
There's like a lot of small details, kind of like I was saying before. Mainly we wanted to use physical things because I think it's easier to depict that, especially with something that's visual. And in addition, I have actual recording of psychologists and psychiatrists talking over it. So you get more of like an understanding of the small things that she's actually doing, which sort of could be seen as unnoticed before, or you could just overlook them. So I really think it's about the small details that one could miss, but because there's so many of them, I think it's sort of hard to miss it. And with the added information that's being played over it.
And so out of curiosity, do you have this video published somewhere?
I don't, but I mean, it's on a website, sort of. It's my dad's like editing thing. But I've been sharing it around. I have the link. It's on my presentation, so I can put it in the chat.
Wonderful. That would be great. Yeah, just so that way people can check it out if they're interested in learning more. Well, wonderful. Well, thank you very much. That was great. Up next, we have Hoang. And so I will go ahead and will allow you to share. I'm going to go ahead and remove Stella from the screen here. And up next. And so just so everybody's clear, the session technically is over now, but we still have about 15 minutes before the next session start. So if you have something to do, feel free to go do that. Otherwise, we'd love for you to hang out and watch our last presenter here. So go ahead and share your screen, or your presentation rather, and then I will go ahead and leave the screen once you get started.
Okay. Okay, can you guys see the screen?
Yep.
Okay. So hi everyone, my name is V, and over the summer I conducted a review paper on the overlap of brand community and word of mouth. So my idea for this project came from the book Contagious that I read over the summer on word of mouth, and my mentor at Polygence also suggested brand community as a very interesting marketing element that I could potentially look into, since brands usually utilize this brand community to strengthen customer brand relationships. So I decided to incorporate these two fields together. So I can like conduct literature review on the intersection on both topics. So just a little background, brand community, it's a group of people that form and center around the conception of a brand. And some examples for brand community can include like the Harley Davidson Posy Ride or Cam Jeep. And word of mouth is simply the passing of information from one individual to another through daily dialogues. So since word of mouth brings people together through conversations, I just thought that word of mouth can be used to foster engagement among members in brand communities to further strengthen these communities together. So since the intersection of word of mouth and brand community has very little study and research, I decided to demonstrate the role of word of mouth in brand community development through the analysis of the marketing practices of several e-commerce platforms in Vietnam and in the US. So over the 10 weeks, I just read research articles and compiled all the research on these two fields. And here are some of the key findings of my research. So I found that brand community, it's extremely crucial to brands in establishing good relationship with their customers because it increases brand trust, brand loyalty, and brand satisfaction. And the reason for this is because the interaction or networking in brand community makes customers feel more belonging and supported by the brand. And for word of mouth, I found that it's very impactful in influencing people purchase decisions. And the interesting thing about word of mouth is that it happens voluntarily, so brands don't have to force information to people like traditional advertising does. So I really think that word of mouth can be used to foster voluntary engagement among people in brand communities so that people feel more belonging to the brand and even like strengthen the brand community even more. So besides my research on just brand community and word of mouth, I also did additional research on the factors that could potentially increase the effectiveness of word of mouth and brand community development. So I made two research propositions, as you can see on the right, on targeted messaging and interdependent self-controls. So I argue in my paper that targeted messaging seems more genuine because it caters to only a specific group of people, and people are more likely to pass on targeted messages in brand communities. And for interdependent self-controls, I also argue that interdependent oriented people highly value a sense of community, so they're more likely to engage in word of mouth, and also it's easier for brands to establish brand communities for these groups of people. So with these propositions and the literature review I discussed in the general discussion of my paper, that community engagement and brand education through engagement, it's fairly crucial to customer brand relationships. And because of this, brands should highly consider word of mouth as a facilitator in establishing type brand communities.
Awesome. Well, that was great. Would you mind leaving that up? Actually, I have a couple.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sorry about
Oh,
that.
yeah, I just couldn't see the screen, so.
Oh, got it. Well, that's okay. Well, I was just kind of wondering. So, there's through word of mouth, you're talking about how it can be fairly efficient at getting, like brand passage. So I was just kind of wondering, like, in your opinion, is that kind of what, brand development should focus on then?
Well, I think it's definitely something brands should consider doing because word of mouth for traditional advertising, for example, you have to like continuously force information to the consumers. And sometimes like nowadays when you see too many ads in YouTube, consumers get sometimes annoyed. So like the traditional advertising may backfire. But with word of mouth, it comes from like the people that you interact with in real life and you're familiar with. So no matter like how much information you're forced into you won't get annoyed, and you're more likely to consider recommendations from your close social ties. So I feel like brands should really focus on word of mouth and just like focus on brand community in general. Yeah.
Got it. Any questions from our audience members? Feel free to type them in the chat, or if you'd like to ask your question live, feel free to just put a note and request to share video, and you're welcome to ask. No? Oh, there's a question here. Can you speak about the difference you noticed between Amazon and Shopee?
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time researching between like Amazon and Shopee. So just a little background, Amazon, it's an e-commerce platform in the US. It's very popular, and it's one of like I think the biggest and like oldest e-commerce platform in the world. And Shopee, it's just a local e-commerce platform that just existed for 5 years in Vietnam. And basically what I did in my research paper, just analyze the marketing practices of Amazon and Shopee. I talk about how Amazon they caters to the American population. In America, it's a very culturally diverse nation, and Shopee it only caters to the Vietnamese population, which it's a country where people share the same culture, same language, and same ethnicity. And so between Amazon and Shopee, obviously targeted advertising and targeted messaging, it's much more easier for Shopee to work with because they only deal with a similar group of people, whereas for Amazon, it's not as efficient because they have like different groups of people. And yeah, that's like one of the things I talk about, just like analyze the population that these two e-commerce platforms deal with and how their approach to building a brand community on their website. Yeah.
Well, great. Well, if there aren't any other questions, that concludes our poster session 3 here. I hope everybody sticks around. We have great talks coming up after this, and we also have a panel that I think most of our students would like to attend in just a little bit. But again, thank you very much, and feel free to jump back into other events as you wish.